When the temperature drops below freezing, your car becomes a coffin. Not a metaphor, not an exaggeration. A literal death trap if you are sleeping in it without understanding the physics of heat loss. Most people never learn this because they never need to. They flip a switch, turn a dial, and warmth appears. They have no idea that the moment the grid fails, the furnace dies, or they find themselves in a vehicle with no fuel, they are 8 hours from hypothermia. But there is a population of people who know this intimately. They have no choice but to know it. The homeless community, particularly those living in vans and vehicles, has developed a sophisticated body of knowledge about surviving freezing temperatures without fire, without electricity, and without the grid. They are not victims of ignorance. They are experts in a brutal discipline that the rest of us have simply forgotten. Today, we are going to decode that knowledge. We are going to understand exactly how the body loses heat in a vehicle, what materials actually work to stop it, and the specific techniques for generating power and warmth that require nothing from any utility company. What you learn here might save your life. It might save someone else's. Let's start with the enemy. The enemy is not the cold air outside. It is the physics of heat transfer, and it is working against you every single second. There are 3 mechanisms by which your body loses heat in a vehicle. Conduction is the first and most deadly. When you are sitting on a cold metal van floor or pressed against a cold wall, heat flows directly from your body into that metal, into that plastic, into that fiberglass, and is stolen away into the outside air. Metal is an incredibly efficient heat sink. A van floor at 20 degrees Fahrenheit will pull heat from your body faster than you can generate it. You will not feel this happening immediately. You will feel cold, then numb, then you will stop shivering, and then you will be in serious trouble. Convection is the second mechanism. The air inside the van is slightly warmer than the outside, but unless it is moving, it settles into layers. Cold air sinks, warm air rises. Without active air circulation, you are sitting in a progressively colder layer of air that is slowly sapping your body heat through your exposed skin, and especially through your head, which loses heat faster than any other part of your body because of the high blood flow and large surface area. Radiation is the third mechanism and the one most people completely ignore. Your body emits infrared radiation in all directions. In a vehicle, those infrared waves radiate outward and hit the cold interior surfaces of the van. Those surfaces absorb the radiation and re-radiate it outward through the thin metal walls into the night sky. Your body is essentially firing heat missiles at the walls and watching them disappear. Now that you understand the 3 mechanisms, you can defend against all 3. This is where the van dwellers have done something remarkable. They have turned the vehicle itself into a survival tool. The first line of defense is insulation, and not the pink fiberglass stuff you find at the hardware store. That insulation is designed for walls with studs and drywall. It does not work in a vehicle. What works is a combination of reflective insulation and mass. Reflective insulation, the kind commonly called bubble foil or mylar insulation, works by reflecting radiant heat back toward your body. You have seen this material. It looks like silver bubble wrap. You can buy it in rolls at any hardware store for about $15. The physics is simple. Radiant heat travels as infrared waves. When those waves hit a reflective surface, they bounce back. They do not get absorbed into the vehicle walls. They do not get radiated away. They come right back to you. In a van, you want to line the entire interior with this reflective insulation, especially the ceiling and the floor. You attach it with adhesive or with simple screws, but here is the critical detail. It must have an air gap. If you press the reflective foil directly against the cold metal of the van walls, it becomes just another layer of conduction. The foil needs a small gap of dead air between it and the metal to work as a radiant barrier. Even a 1/4 inch of airspace dramatically improves performance. This is why the best setups use foam board or rigid insulation as a spacer, with the reflective foil on the interior side. The foam stops conduction. The foil stops radiation. Combined, they address 2 of the 3 heat loss mechanisms with one simple layer. Now, let's talk about the floor. This is where most people fail, and where van dwellers invest the most effort. The van floor is a slab of metal sitting directly on the ground. In freezing temperatures, it can be 30 degrees colder than the air inside the van, and it is pulling heat from your body through whatever you are sitting on at an alarming rate. The solution is mass. You need thermal mass between your body and that metal floor. The most effective and cheapest solution is sand. Yes, sand. Fill the van floor with sand to a depth of 4 to 6 inches. Sand has a high thermal mass, meaning it takes a lot of energy to change its temperature. When you heat the sand with your body heat, it absorbs that energy and holds it. Through the night, it slowly releases that heat back to you, creating a radiant floor effect. Fill a few dozen cloth bags with sand and arrange them across the floor of your van. Cover them with a thick wool blanket or a moving blanket. You now have a floor that holds heat, insulates you from the cold metal below, and costs almost nothing. Some van dwellers go further and fill the entire lower cavity of the van with sand or with dry leaves or with straw. The principle is the same. You are creating a thermal battery that stores the heat your body generates and releases it slowly through the night. Now, let's talk about the body heat itself. This is the most important heat source, and most people waste it. You generate roughly 100 watts of heat at rest. That is not nothing. That is the equivalent of a small light bulb running continuously. But most of that heat is lost to the mechanisms we already discussed. What you need to do is trap it. The single most effective technique for this is the reflector sleeping system. You build a sleeping area that is essentially a tent within the tent, with reflective surfaces on all sides except the entry. You crawl into this space and your body heat has nowhere to go except back to you. The reflective walls bounce your own radiant heat back into your body. This works remarkably well. Combined with a quality sleeping bag rated for temperatures well below what you expect to face, you can survive in a van at 10 degrees Fahrenheit with zero supplemental heat. But there is another heat source that van dwellers use that most people never think about. Chemical heat. Hand warmers are one use, but they are disposable and expensive. The better solution is the heat from a simple chemical reaction that you can generate yourself. When you combine calcium chloride, which you can buy in bulk as ice melt, with water, you get an exothermic reaction that releases significant heat for 30 to 60 minutes. You can put this in a simple metal container inside your sleeping area for a boost of warmth when you need it most, during the coldest hours between 3 and 6 a.m. Simply put calcium chloride in a jar, add a little water, and set it inside your shelter. The reaction is safe, the chemicals are cheap, and you can generate heat without any flame, without any electricity, and without any detection. This is why you see it used in homeless camps in extreme cold. Now let's address the power. A van without power is limited. You cannot charge phones, you cannot run medical devices, you cannot have lights at night. But there are ways to generate power without the grid, and the van dwellers have figured out the most practical ones. The first and most obvious is the vehicle itself. Your car battery can power a small inverter, but there is a serious problem with this strategy. If you drain your car battery below a certain threshold, you cannot start your vehicle. In a survival situation, losing your vehicle is losing your shelter, your transportation, and your escape route. You cannot afford to strand yourself. The solution is a separate deep cycle battery that you charge from the vehicle's alternator while driving, and then use for everything else when the vehicle is parked. This is standard practice among van dwellers, but here is the advanced technique that most people miss. You can supplement alternator charging with a small solar panel. A single 100-watt flexible solar panel, which you can buy for about $80, can be mounted on the roof of the van or laid on the dashboard. It will not generate enough power to run everything, but it will extend your battery life significantly, especially if you are parked during the day. On a cloudy winter day, a 100-watt panel might produce 10 to 20 watts. On a clear winter day, it might produce 50 or 60 watts. That is enough to charge a phone, run some LED lights, and keep a small fan circulating to prevent the cold air from settling around you. The second power source is a generator, but not the kind you are thinking about. A human-powered generator is a small device that uses a hand crank or a foot pedal to generate power. You can buy simple emergency crank radios that include a built-in generator and can charge a phone. It takes effort, about 15 minutes of cranking to get a significant charge, but it works. There is something profound about this. You are converting your own metabolic energy into electrical energy. You are not dependent on the sun, on fuel, on the grid. You are the source. There is a third power source that is less known but incredibly effective in the right conditions. A thermoelectric generator, sometimes called a Stirling engine or a waste heat generator, converts heat from a flame into electricity. You can build a simple version using a tea light candle and a thermoelectric module, which costs about $10 online. The candle heats one side of the module, the other side stays cool from the ambient air, and it generates a few watts of power. It is not much, but it is enough to charge a phone slowly or to run a small LED light. And it uses nothing but a candle, which you can carry in a box. Critics will say this is inefficient. They are right, but efficiency does not matter when the alternative is having no power at all. The candle also provides direct radiant heat, so you are getting dual use from every flame. Now we need to talk about the limitations, because there are serious ones, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. In extreme cold, below -10 Fahrenheit, all of these techniques combined may not be enough. The human body can only generate so much heat. Even with perfect insulation, even with thermal mass, even with reflective barriers, if the exterior temperature is cold enough and long enough, you will eventually succumb. The solution is simple but not easy. You must have a backup heat source that does not depend on electricity. A small propane heater, properly vented, can raise the interior temperature of a van by 20 to 30 degrees. But propane produces carbon monoxide, and in an enclosed vehicle, that is a death sentence. You must have proper ventilation. You must crack a window, even if it lets in some cold air. The math is simple. A small amount of cold air is better than a room full of invisible poison gas. Most professional van dwellers who winter in their vehicles use a propane heater with a dedicated vent to the outside. They accept the fuel dependency because the alternative is death. There is no shame in this. Recognizing your limits is not weakness, it is intelligence. Here is what separates the people who survive from the people who do not. They do not rely on a single system. They have layers. Insulation is layer 1. Thermal mass is layer 2. Sleeping bag is layer 3. Chemical heat is layer 4. Propane is layer 5. Each layer alone might not be enough. But together, they create a redundancy that almost never fails. The most critical insight here is that none of this requires money. None of it requires a store. The sand is free. The reflective insulation is $15. The wool blanket can be found at a thrift store. The calcium chloride is $10 for a 10-pound bag. The skills are what matter. Anyone can learn them. You do not need a van to practice these techniques. Tonight, try sleeping in your car in a parking lot with nothing but what you would have with you if you were suddenly homeless. See how cold it gets. See where you lose heat. See what works and what does not. This is not about being poor. This is about being prepared. The knowledge that homeless people use to survive freezing temperatures is not special knowledge. It is not secret knowledge. It is physics and engineering applied to a specific problem. The problem is staying warm when everything is against you. The solution is understanding the enemy, building the layers, and having the discipline to execute. Most people will never need this. Most people will flip the switch, turn the dial, and warmth will appear. But the world is fragile. The grid goes down. The fuel runs out. The car breaks down in a snowstorm. And when that happens, you will have 8 hours before hypothermia sets in. What you do in those 8 hours depends on what you learn today. The homeless community did not learn this because they wanted to. They learned it because they had to. And what they learned is available to you right now for free.